Greg Garza. What's in the mug, Greg?
Can't tell you. How's everything going, man?
All right, welcome back. You've had a busy last couple of weeks, and so good to have you back. But you've been flying around, catching up with a lot of different folks. What have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
Everything's been great. John, thank you for having us as always. We've been busy with Beyond Goals. It's been awesome to connect in so many different places with Michael. Going to Boys and Girls Clubs, connecting with Atlanta United. Drawing up the drawing board of some things that will potentially happen in the future. Just very excited about the growth of everything, and really focusing on continuing in what our opinion is so important in today's youth sports world, and even the professional sports world of just the mental fortitude and mental strength that is needed to gain consistent success.
All right. So, first thing that I wanted to ask about is the time that you get to spend with Michael and the Unified team. Do you remember the first time when you were with Atlanta United, when the Unified team was introduced to you as an individual? Do you remember what those conversations were like?
Yeah, I do. I remember who is the head of community relations, Marissa Arons, within Atlanta United. She gave us this list right when we first started Atlanta United. And I love the fact that, it was already, these are things for an inaugural club to already have, on the surface, for us to go ahead and, really be involved within the community from the very first day. That was something that really stood out to me. But she gave us this list of all the organizations that they had obviously wanted to work with from the get-go. And that was one of the first ones that caught my eye. I'm not sure if I had mentioned it on the show before, but I remember in 8th grade, when I was in 8th grade, I was a PAL. And what we had in Texas, there were about maybe 12 of us of the whole entire school within 8th grade. And we were PALs. I honestly don't even remember what it stands for. Peers assisting, I don't know what the L is for. But we got to spend all day with kids that had special needs. Every Friday, our whole entire school day within 8th grade for me was to help kids with special needs and follow them around throughout the day and go to class with them and help them with any homework that they had. And that's something that really stood out to me. I think I was, obviously being raised by, great parents to teach me great morals and values about life. And, I just always had this want and will and desire to be involved in things like that. And that was probably the beginning of me working with kids and even just people along that matter that have some special needs. And, for me, throughout my whole entire career, not only within Atlanta, I did the same thing in Tijuana. I was an ambassador there as well for kids with Down syndrome as well. It was always such a blessing because, I think for myself, you learn so much from them, us as adults or us as other kids, you really start to think, what the word happiness means, right? And what the word joy means. And I think they really solidify of nothing else matters in life rather than just being happy. And I think with the Unified team, that's something that you see, you learn so many core values from just their happiness of being on the field, and nothing else really phases them. They have no other worries about life rather than just being happy within that moment. I think that for me, being involved, and now, people always tell me, thank you for always doing what you do for our community, and spending time, especially with Special Olympics and the Unified team. And, I'm the one thanking them. I'm the one thanking them because they teach you so much about what life is meant to be and what it's all about. And I think that for me is probably my biggest lesson for anybody that wants to get involved, is that you learn so much from their way of being and the way that they act towards just towards life itself.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to kind of to dive into here a little bit with peer assisted learning. And the ideas that we get to learn as much from them as they do from us, and that kind of and it's almost it's two-way mentoring in ways with individuals that you wouldn't necessarily expect that you would get it from, but it's another avenue where mentors get to learn as much from their mentees as the other way around.
Most definitely. I think that I love the way that you said that, because, even as mentors of kids who now play soccer, we are constantly learning week in, week out of better ways to understand kids' mentalities, right? What they're going through. And we learn different things, right? I use kids' quotes all the time with other kids, right? Because they're teaching me things of what the word commitment means, or what all of these different things. It's so interesting to see how so many kids think about themselves, or how they think about the world around them. And we are constantly learning as well. But I kind of had this thought in my mind right now, is this is what I now do for a living. Of mentoring. And I kind of now just thought back of being a pal in 8th grade. And it's kind of, my whole life has kind of been, geared towards being a mentor and being someone that can, be there for certain individuals, and, for groups itself. And I've been very fortunate to be raised in a great way, but also, keep those core values within my life.
When you have someone like Michael Mastrangelo, who literally just rubs off on you, I mean, literally, he is one of the most positive influences that I think anyone could have. And he, to the conversation that we've been having for the last 10 minutes, he reminds you of the right path. He reminds you of the path that you're taking, and he shows you the path that he's taken. And I just think that there are times that when you can, that we're reminded, when we get to see someone like Michael, when we get to see the unified team, we're reminded of the kind of good that we can do as both mentors and just as people. And I think that I think that a lot of folks maybe are missing out on unified team activities. Like, there'll be a game either well before an Atlanta United game or after an Atlanta United game, but to see Brad be a part of this process, to see you be a part of the process, to see the guys after a match where they've put it out there for 90 minutes, they get showered, then they come back out there and they're a part of the unified team's life, because they get to be just as active as those unified team members are. And I think it's a really cool two-way street, and it reminds us once again about the impact that we can have in communities.
And that's what it's all about, right? It's essentially I'm not part of the Atlanta United organization anymore, but that organization of the unified team and Special Olympics, I will be a part of forever. And I think that's something that I think within mentorship that Michael and I have, like you said, are continuously learning. It's not about just going once and speaking to so many kids. It's about building a long and everlasting relationship, because that's what means the most, right? And 10 years from now, all of our mentees will hopefully have the ability to still speak to us and still have an opportunity, to continue to learn. And they're going to go through different phases within their life, and they're still going to say, hey, this person I counted on in specific moments, and this person I will continue to count on in specific moments. I think mentors are for life. It's not just, and sometimes the messaging, that is given from people that we really look up to, can be used once, and that's all you need to get to hear something and use it for the rest of your life. But I think mentorship in itself is something that is a long and everlasting relationship that means so much.
What was the last thing that you learned from a mentee?
Gosh, last thing I learned from a mentee. I'm going to say I love learning from every mentee that I speak to, but I think asking every mentee, we always ask every mentee what the word commitment means. To see what the word commitment means in itself, of knowing, how driven you are to achieve something. And I think, there are so many different ways so many kids view that, whether it's the time, the sacrifice, the dedication, the waking up and not wanting to do something, but still doing it. Right. And I think for me, there are certain messages that I have gotten from so many different kids, whether it be a girl who's 11 years old and whether it be a college player who's 19 years old or 20 years old, or whether it be, a kid who's playing at the highest level or a kid that's playing in high school. It doesn't matter. I think that the value of what they view commitment is has been probably the most striking and most interesting to me, because every kid views the word commitment differently, and we all do. But I think that that's something that really stands out to me, because that shows me, how much work and how much effort they are willing to put in to achieve anything that's put in front of them, and continue to follow through with things. And that just shows me that no matter what, whether it's soccer, no matter what they have in front of them in their lives, they will have the right mindset and at least be willing to make that plan A come true.
What have been your percentages of male to female mentees? Has that changed over time? Has it been 50-50? Has it been purposely 50-50? What's been the percentage of male to female mentees?
Yeah, I would say we are more male mentee than female. We have a lot of girls that we work with. But I would say the majority of our kids are boys. And that's something that, strikes a bell within our minds and heads with Michael and I, because we want to raise that number within women. But the women's youth sports is very different than the boys youth sports, right? The politicalness, there's so many different avenues that are a little of the unknown for us, right? And we are continuously learning within that, even the soccer side of it, right? We know all the leagues now within the kids or within the boys sports, and within boys soccer and girls soccer, it can be very different, right? So I think, within and down the line, as we continue to progress and we continue to grow, we will definitely be looking to add a woman who has a voice that can also be heard and can also serve as a great mentor, to open those doors for girls to speak to as well. And I think it's also, just that feeling, the comfort level as well, right? I think a girl who's 12, 13 years old probably would feel a little bit more intimidated speaking to us as guys, and maybe would be a lot more open to speaking to a woman or an ex woman or ex player that's a woman, to open up as much as possible, because we already have the intimidation factor even from our boys as well, right? So we definitely look in the future to say, when we do expand and we do start to grow even more, that will definitely be in the realm of our mentorship program.
Is there a question or a topic that you wish you were asked about more than you are? Because I imagine that there are times with mentees that, and we see this, when we go into classrooms and things like that, when you sit there and you're doing a presentation as an adult to students, and you ask them if there's any questions, and then there's silence in the room. It's
crickets.
It's like, and I will, when I'm talking to students who are interested in doing this for a living, I will sit there and I will tell them that no question is a dumb question, because it has been asked before and it has been answered before, but it would be the first time that you have heard that answer in this particular room and in this framework. Is there a topic that you wish would be addressed more, because you want to help as much as possible, but sometimes if you don't ask, you don't know what's going on in their head where you can help them? And that's the reason I asked that question.
Yeah, for sure. I think in a group setting, it is much more difficult for a kid to ask a specific or a particular question that is going to help them personally, right? I think more so in a group setting, the questions that we usually get are, what does it take to get to that level? But when we are in a more personal setting and a more individual, environment, I think that's when the questions are able to be asked, uh, in a sense of understanding how to react with teammates, or how to create a positive mindset even when things are going really bad. I would say the question that you know I would say the question that I would probably want more out of our mentees, if I were to be very, if I were to nitpick something specific, I would say, I would want kids to ask me how I set my goals when I was their age.
Yeah.
Right? What goals did I set when I was their age? Because there are so many kids that we ask, what are your goals, and they don't know, right? They're not sure of what their goals are, and how to get there, right? They usually have it up here, but for them to express that, I think there's been a very, everything is in these days is within this, right? And kids these days really don't write down. I mean, I always give them the opportunity to use their notes within their phone,
Yeah.
right? Every kid has an iPhone or a Galaxy or whatever it may be. It has a notes section. Write down a couple of things that really stand out to you, that you say, this is what I want. This is what I want for myself, and this is a good starting point for me to try and get there. Not many kids have that. We'll get kids every once in a while that will have a complete list of questions even before we meet them, and those are the kids that you really say, okay, this kid knows exactly what he wants. But I would say, for the most part, that is part of the mentorship as well, to help these kids understand that obviously their voice can be heard, that you want them to ask questions, but at the same time to just open up, and also even within themselves, and start to understand what it is they want, right? And that's such a fine line, because a kid can be 18, 19, 20 years old and still not know what the heck they want to do with their life. But if you can get a kid to start thinking at the age of 13, 14 of small little goals that they can start to achieve, and start to have that use of understanding what accomplishment is if they do get closer to those, or even failure, right? Of understanding what failure may mean, and building up that resilience. There's two sides of it for sure.
Because one of the things that we've talked about in the past is your journaling, and sitting down and taking the time to sit there and put something, pen to
Yeah.
paper, so you have something written down and you can recall it and go back to it and continue to reference it. And I think, to your point, there is a bit of a technological generational disconnect, for lack of a better word, where they're drawn to those devices, where you and I will sit there and we'll go to the store and we'll grab, a pack of 5 legal pads for, $2.79, or
Yeah.
we'll grab a a big notebook like this, and we'll
Yeah.
sit there and we'll write things down. And I think that it's that notion of, okay, actually doing something and understanding that, yes, there is a note section in your phone.
Yeah.
You can do this into your phone. That sometimes that information,
It might be blurred, but that's
post its,
always on my desk. Yep. Yep.
post its. I mean, and because I've always maintained that if you don't write something down, you have a tendency to forget it.
Most definitely. It's like going. I mean, I went to the grocery store this morning very early, and it's like I have to take a Post-it, because if not, even if I tell myself, okay, there's five things that I have to remember, and I get in that store and I'll see something else, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was the last one, right? What was the last thing
Well,
that
but for me, I'm also the kind of guy that's going to do an impulse buy. Even,
right?
it's like if I've got my list, and I'll just go down the aisles and sit there and go, ooh, ice cream, and
Oh,
then that distracts us from the
those
first
five
thing in
things.
the first place.
I love how you knew the exact price of the notepad, though, $2.79. I might have to go confirm and check that for you.
I mean, hey, it's from all those books that you write, brother. You sit there and it's like, okay, what program do I need? What does it
Right.
cost? Where do I go and do it? just past halftime. We're now in the second half with Greg Garza with a weekly visit from our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring at BG Mentoring on the Twitters here on a Freestyle Friday, getting ready for MLS Cup and a bunch of other things. I want to go back to a retirement that we had in Major League Soccer at the end of the regular season, and actually at the first round of the playoffs, Gonzalo Higuain. And one of the things that he said as a part of his retirement, I wanted to get your thoughts on. And it was where Gonzalo Higuain went public and expressed how difficult it was for him as an athlete because of social media and all of the negativity that was there. And because of that negativity, once he has, I guess, settled into being retired, he wants to be a mental health coach. And I thought that that was a real interesting twist on being a mentor after experiencing something incredibly difficult here in the 21st century, that he wants to take those steps for the next steps in his career. What did you think about when that came across your bow?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Um, I'm going to be quite frank and quite honest within my answer. But has anybody seen him play the last year within the MLS? And I'd like to get maybe comments and seeing what his attitude was like,
Yeah.
the way that he treated his teammates,
Mm-hmm.
the way that he treated others. And it's just little bitty examples of, you say, gosh, okay, well, you know, is this the right move? Is this the right decision? I mean, hands down, so much respect towards who he is as a player. And I'm sure he's probably an awesome teammate to have at times, but there were some questionable acts within moments of adversity. And I think I always like to see what people's reactions are, whether you are in the limelight of being an absolute superstar or whoever you may be. When there are moments of adversity, what actions are you taking to deal with those? And there were moments throughout the whole entire year that I feel for a lot of players within that team on Inter Miami that have had to deal with or had to cope with a lot of negativity being around one person. And that's just my honest opinion, right? We have to share our thoughts. I wish him the very best on whatever is next in his career and whatever is next in his path. I mean, I'm sure he will have, an opening to do whatever it is he wants to, because of how much he has succeeded within the game of soccer. And that gives him such a massive platform to do so many different things for good. But there are a lot of questionable moments within the last year that kind of make you think, well, what was he thinking in those moments to really treat people a certain way?
In your career, when there have been, and I imagine that there's been that central force on a club, but that central force is negative. How difficult is it for everyone else to navigate around that centerpiece of negativity to still try to focus on a goal?
That's a difficult one, right? It takes one rotten apple within a locker room to bring everything down, right? And that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter, right? It can really be destructive when you have one person bringing everybody else down, because it's a ripple effect, right? It starts to domino. It starts to domino towards just one person, and that person pulling in somebody else within that bubble of negativity. And it has happened on teams before that I've been on, right? It has happened with coaching staffs that I have been on teams before, within the coaching staff of coaches, speaking negatively about one another, right? And you as a professional athlete of trying to get through those moments and remain positive can be very difficult. Because sometimes you get pulled within that negativity, and depending on what your personal and individual situation may be, right? I think at the end of the day, that's something for people on the outside to really understand, is that, yes, of course, it is a beautiful team sport, but at the end of the day, it is a very individualist sport as well, because you have to make the most out of what you are in there for a very short period of time, right? And you have to make the most out of every positive situation, and you have to learn how to cope and deal with those negative situations as well. And that's something for players that that's a huge mental battle to go through when you're playing in such a big team environment, when there is negativity around one object or one person or one subject, to really focus on yourself and not put any energy towards what that may be.
How difficult is it to explain that to a mentee where you have to ride that fine line?
Oh man, it is difficult. That's I actually spoke to a mentee last night about that. That's really interesting. Even when things are going so terribly wrong, um, you know, where with whatever situation the team may be in, whatever situation the coach may be putting you through, Michael says it so well. He always says, if you continue to be negative, right, there's only going to be one outcome, right? But if you have sparks of positivity, there can be a way to change that around, and it's so easy for me to say and so hard to do. But that's the easy answer, right? If you can have little sparks of positivity, then you might be able to turn situations around. But if you continue down that negative path, there's only going to be one path. There's never going to be an intersection to where you can take another one.
All right, before you go, MLS Cup. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah,
it is a game this weekend.
I got Philly.
Okay, well, and I want to get into the DNA of both of these teams here a little bit. Where Philly, they come at you in a unique fashion in the 4-4-2 diamond.
Yeah,
don't know if they're going to have Bedoya or not, considering he had to leave again after another 30 plus
minutes. Yeah.
But Philadelphia is a team that will frustrate the ever living out of you, because what they'll do early on, and Ismail El Fath is in the middle. They'll go right up against that line. They will foul. They will foul. They will foul. They will push. They will go. They will sit there and try to goad you into situations. And it'll be different dudes that will foul you. So you don't get they're waiting for the persistent infringement call that may or may not ever come. They go right up against that line, try to frustrate the hell out of you. And I think against a team like LAFC, where if you're physical against them, you can knock them off their pins, you can distract them mentally. It could be a long day for Philly. As you look at this match, what do you see with these two teams?
I see Philly doing the exact same thing of what they've done with every other team. They play a nasty, go nonstop style of play that's obnoxiously successful.
Yes.
Right.
Good word. Good word.
And it's very I love it. I love it because I want to look at the fact of name one big player on Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Who in the world is Gazdag?
Daniel Gazdag. Yeah.
I've never even heard of him. Right. I don't even know where he came from. Who in the world is Martinez? Right.
Martinez. I think that if
plays for the Venezuelan national team, but where did he play? Where did he play before?
Right.
Venezuelan league.
Yeah.
Right. There are so many players. Look at Kai Wagner. He's been on the best 11 all-star team. That guy was playing in like the 3rd or 4th division of Germany before he came to Philly.
Yep.
Right. And you look at these players and you're like, holy crap, right? These players are developed players. They are developed players. There's nothing to do with, obviously they have a specific talent that they had in the very beginning, but Philly has developed these guys to have success out of sorry, but I have to say it, out of nothing, right? Mm-hmm. And that to me is so interesting because they are a prime example of that. Money does not buy everything, right?
System dudes.
Yep, they are all industrial players who are hardworking, and that's something that even with Alejandro Bedoya, right? It was the leader and captain of that team. Not someone who you say, "Gosh, that guy is going to be such a playmaker, game changer. The guy has tons of games within the national team, played in the World Cup because of how hard that guy works. He is a hard worker. He is a ballsy guy who's going to go into every tackle, who's going to work his tail off until the last dying minute. Mm-hmm. And that's a guy who has now spread that energy to every single one of those players who are all unknown, in my opinion. I don't really know, any of them. I've never heard of any of those guys ever before. Not one player on that team. And so, I think that to me shows that, things within this league are ever changing, and you never know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates, right? You never know. And I think, it's to see them have success within that. I love it. I love it. And I think deservingly they are there, with the style, like I said, of playing so obnoxious and just being a fighting team. But then you have LA. You have LA, who's spent millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to have success, and keep spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to have success. And that pressure is on them. Philly goes into this game with no pressure at all whatsoever. And I think they'll play like that as well. They know they give two craps of all the guys that are worth millions that are in front of them, because they will run them in circles. And I think that's what's going to happen. That's my personal opinion. I can't wait until the game, because I think it's the two deserving teams of this year to be there. Both teams within both conferences really made a name for themselves this year. But I think within the development, and you see what Jim Curtin has done within the past 6-7 years within Philly, has just been, it's one thing if you start to build and then you just kind of plateau. But within the last 7 years, I mean, if you look at Philly 10 years ago, wasn't much there going on. With some directing changes and everything that they've gone through, they've really built themselves up. I'll tell you this: Philly actually visited me in Tijuana before I went to Atlanta, so that was one of the places that, besides going to Atlanta, that was probably the other place I would have gone to. And I think it's a good thing I chose Atlanta, because I chose it at the right time, and everything ended up working out. But I love the progress that they've had with just their development and finding players that they know they can count on and are reliable.
And you've got Andre Blake in net, who's been more than happy to stand on his head.
My gosh. He is unbelievable. He's always been amazing. His arms touch the floor while he's standing. The guy, his read, I want to know his wingspan has to be, I don't even know what his wingspan. It's got to be like 9 feet.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's going on with Beyond Goals? I know that you guys don't stop just because the pro soccer schedule doesn't stop. What's going on?
Yeah, we're excited to continuously grow. Like I said, we have a lot of things up our sleeve on focusing on the nonprofit side as well, which is a huge step in the right direction for us, and helping other communities and other demographics also have the ability to have guides and mentors. So if anyone is interested in helping us out there, always feel free to contact us. We would love any donations that can help kids get on the right path and have someone in their lives that they can count on.
Greg Garza at BG Mentoring on the Twitters and Beyond Goals Mentoring on the World Wide Web. Greg, it's great to catch up with you as always. You and Cap are fantastic when you come here and you put up with my questions for a half hour on the Friday Free Kick every Friday. Thanks for hanging out.
A pleasure as always, man. Take care. Have a good weekend, bud.
You will, and I will too, because we're going to watch MLS Cup and then
there you go.
A bunch of fun there as well. So Greg Garza, he's going to finish his cup of coffee. He's going to do a whole bunch of other things and hang out with us every other Friday, unless Michael Parkhurst has to come in from the bullpen.